the Drought Minister's office says it's clarifying government policy after David Littleproud claimed no one will be kicked off the Farm Household Allowance. Live now to political reporter Eliza Edwards. Sorry, we're changing the order of things. Actually, we don't have Eliza now. We're going to do an interview instead with the Environment Minister, Sussan Ley. Sussan joins me now. Thank you for your time, Minister.
It's a pleasure, Shari.
You probably could have done that cross for us in any case to clarify this mix-up. In fact, I'm going to start by asking you about that. What is going on? How can David Littleproud say that no farmer is going to miss out when the policy position is meant to be completely at odds with that? What is the story?
Well, I heard David's comments and I've heard the Prime Minister's comments, and I don't see inconsistency. It's important to note that policy relating to the drought is iterative. It responds to different situations. So as I see this drought, Shari, moving south, it's been in Western Queensland for 7 years. Unfortunately, it's in my electorate now. Let's keep our fingers crossed it doesn't go further south. We will respond as we need to with policies that make sense at the time.
Minister, just to clear that up, you don't see there's any inconsistency. So are people being kicked off the farm household allowance or not?
People are entitled to receive farm household allowance for 4 years, after which they get a payment, a lump sum payment, and let's see how their circumstances work from then on, because our rural financial counsellors who talk to them every day can connect them with other opportunities for support that may not be this one government payment. So I want to give people a sense that our rural financial counselling service, with people on the ground in all the communities that are struggling, are there to help. And if they feed back to government that there's a particular policy area that needs attention, of course we take that into account. It's not set and forget, nor should it be, because the drought changes, people's circumstances change, and they all need continuing support.
Well, there are demands, firstly from the Nationals, to have an extra $1.3 billion in funding, and while that's combined with state and federal, one of the demands is for funding for councils. You've also got a list of demands from the National Farmers Federation, which includes the Commonwealth to pay council rates for affected businesses. Is this something that you are considering after your recent cabinet meeting?
Well, I saw rate relief in the Millennium Drought, and it was provided by state governments, particularly with water rates,
Farmers
which a lot of people...
don't want to hear this back and forth about who should fund this. Is this something that you're considering? Scott Morrison has taken leadership on the drought. He said he's going to fix it. So are you guys considering this?
It hasn't come before me as an Environment Minister or in my capacity as local member. As things come before the Cabinet, of course, we'll consider them. So, again, I wouldn't rule anything out, Shari, but I wouldn't rule it in now either in a preemptive sense. What I would say is that as spenders and representatives as taxpayer dollars, we want to help those in drought communities, and we want to make sure we get the best bang for our buck. And it's not about to and fro between the states, it's about working with them, because if we are to get our communities through this, every level of government does have to work together.
Look, the drought coordinator, Stephen Day, has done quite a comprehensive report on what measures need to be taken. Why won't the government release this?
Well, that's going through a normal cabinet process. I haven't seen the report. I have, however, seen Major General Day. He came to my electorate. He spent 2 days with me. He was a great source of information, support, and I know that the recommendations, conversations, it's not, again, about just one single report at one time. It's about all the work that he did along the way. It's about how he talked continually to government, to the Prime Minister's department, to agriculture, to water bureaucrats, and it all helps us as a team come forward with the best policy, the best level of preparedness and the best insights into what people need.
Will you release it after it's been to Cabinet?
Well, if it was a report in my portfolio, I might be able to give you an answer, so I'll let that go through its normal processes with David Littleproud and with our Cabinet colleagues.
There are growing calls for the government to declare a national disaster because of the drought. Is this something that you are considering along with David Littleproud, and are there good reasons for doing this?
It's terminology, Shari, and for individuals who are, in heartbreaking circumstances, and I represent many of them, that's what it feels like in your life and your family, and I understand that. But I don't tend to get into labels or, headline statements. This is something we are doing at community level. That's why our Drought Communities program is working in local government areas. And I'm seeing it in my area. Bring families together in what I call farm family gatherings. Because what happens when the drought bites is people often stop talking. They stop talking to their neighbours. They often stop talking to each other. But they need that reason to come together in their local town hall to have a laugh, just give them some ability to lift their eyes beyond present really complicated circumstances. The government's there. The resources that we're providing, whether it be to the CWA, to the Foundation for Rural and Regional Renewal, as I said, to local government areas, is working in many corners of the community, including mental health. Our primary health networks have been engaged to do quite a lot of this work in schools, with children, everywhere. And as local, rural and regional members of Parliament, we too are eyes and ears on the ground. We're providing the information that we need to where it counts. But we're also there to reassure our communities that we want them to survive and thrive for the long term.
Minister, just to change topic now, there are protesters in Melbourne today protesting against at a mining conference, and bizarrely we just saw an interview where they actually had a mouthpiece over their face, so very hard to understand what they were saying. We also know the Extinction Rebellion protesters have caused havoc in recent weeks. When you took on this portfolio, you said that you would be approaching it as an environmentalist, defending the environment. Do you support the message of, some of these protesters, including the Extinction Rebellion protesters, that climate change is a global emergency that needs to be addressed?
Well, again, these are headline statements, but yes, coming back to protecting the environment, which is what the portfolio does, we've announced today a review of our signature legislation, the EPBC Act, and people who are protesting today, they might like to turn their attention to providing a submission to Graham Samuel and the panel that represents all of the interests for everyone to get this balance right between human activity, if you like, on the one side, and protection of the environment on the other, so that we can work together, so that we can engage our farmers, our Indigenous landowners, and people who are passionate about a range of factors. So I haven't tuned into the protest, but I always know that if you have your say, when you can have your say, you can make a difference.
Well, on this review today, isn't this something like the 77th review that the Morrison government has announced? Don't you think people look at the coalition government now in its 7th year, I think, and say, why are there still so many reviews being announced?
It's the second review of the EPBC Act, which was introduced in 1999, had a review in 2009, every 10 years. I think that's reasonable, but we look at it every 10 years. The pages in the legislation is probably close to 1,500. I always like to see that reduced. I like to see the matters of national environmental significance, that is what this Act is about, protected, enhanced maybe, and matched with demands for development, whether it be mining resources, whether it be strategic assessments in our Western Sydney metropolitan areas, just getting that balance right. At the moment, we're estimating it costs the economy maybe $300 million a year in delays that can take up to an average of 3.5 years to get those processes happening and those approvals done, and then moving on to provide the economic advantage that we know we can, jobs, growth, pathways for children, getting that balance right with the environment. So no, this is a good review. It's a sensible review, and as I said, it's been 10 years since the last one.
Fair enough. Maybe that one is warranted then. Look, there have been criticisms that the Prime Minister didn't attend Uluru on the weekend. Do you think those criticisms are fair? Should he have been there?
No, I don't think those criticisms were reasonable. He's explained why he wasn't there. I'm not going to second-guess his reasons. I was there because Parks Australia, which looks after the Uluru National Park, comes within my portfolio of the environment. So we were discussing very much the future. It was a historic day to close the climb. It was an appropriate action to take. But we want to keep the tourists, national and international, coming to this extraordinary part of Central Australia. It's a gateway to the semi-arid region. I've announced new Indigenous protected areas. There's lots of activities, by the way, happening to protect the environment from one of its main predators, feral cats, foxes, and we're bringing together so much interest and so much initiative most importantly, those Indigenous communities, the Ananu, are sharing their knowledge and their history, and visitors are fascinated. So it's an exciting time looking ahead.
Minister, just before you go, the former Victorian Premier Jeff Kennett today has said that when you ask most politicians their vision for the country, they look at you with a blank face. So do you, I want to know, do you have a vision for Australia? What is it?
That the environment and humans work together, whether it be in our cities or on the rural areas, which is so close to my heart, to provide the right balance, and so that we find the support that we need, both from the natural world and from the fascinating and amazing people that make up this country.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.